Hey, did you know that we post the news and audio reviews for games on Spotify and iTunes? If you're out and about but still want to remain updated, or you just want a hands-free experience, make sure you look up Ctrl+Alt+Delrith on Spotify and iTunes, or click the link in the description. Enjoy the review. Splatoon is a game made for kids. Its bright colours, easy to draw characters, and adolescent-based fantasy of making a mess that you can't be punished for or forced to clean up is specifically designed to trick little kids into buying games and merch, reading anime, and begging their parents to go to the holographic music concerts. Whenever I see games like this, and we all know the types of games I'm talking about, I just laugh, and I think that it's just another corporate giant building a new machine to suck money away from parents that don't know any better in an effort to silence their children and quell their ever-progressing feeling of mortality with animal-based characters and gooey sound effects. So why is this game so fun? I'll walk you through it, starting with the story. Splatoon 3 takes place 5 years after the events of Splatoon 2 in the Splatlands, a sun-scorched desert inhabited by battle-hardened Inklings and Octolings, and Splatsville, a city of chaos that developed rapidly since the Splatfest of Splatoon 2, Chaos vs. Order. Hey! Wake up! You don't get to tune out of that. The story must make sense to somebody, but honestly that somebody isn't me. The game starts you off with a tutorial. You stylize your character, who in this game is named Agent 3. Get it? Because it's the third game. You also give Small Fry a haircut, who I'll introduce later on, who is honestly the best part of this game, and I will protect him with my life. Then you're off to what I very quickly started calling Squirt City to start the game. The game itself controls fairly well, especially when you jump into the settings to turn off axis aiming as soon as possible, because seriously, what game has ever benefited from axis aiming? The movement itself is fun. Besides normal running and jumping, you can fully submerge yourself in the paint you've squirted around. You do this to hide, climb walls, launch yourself, or just move faster. It's worked well since Splatoon, and they haven't really modified it all that much. Don't fix what ain't broke. Get absolutely splattered, you f***. You cover things in paint with different weapons and gadgets. Things being enemies, buttons, levers, objectives, floors, walls, yourself. You pretty much play the entire game looking like that kid that got into the peanut butter.
Does it feel good?
As the story progresses, you'll meet new characters like Cuttlefish, an old fish with eyes that look like they've seen horrors that you couldn't possibly comprehend. He also gives us some serious Master Roshi vibes, minus the perversion. And you also meet Small Fry, who I quickly nicknamed Blep, who could only be the result of a sultry night of passion between a Goomba from Mario and one of those animals from Deformers, which, for the 12 of you that understand that reference, we can hang at any time. You're cool. The art style is great, just like Splatoon 1 and 2. It's built like a kid's paradise. Every character oozes personality, and every inch of the city that you can explore is rife with detail. It's not cyberpunk, but it gave me some serious Jet Set radio flashbacks. I love that. The city itself is such a fantastic hub world. Walking around and seeing other players chatting and existing really made the city feel like a real place that was worth roaming around. There are storefronts for upgrades and cosmetics, community hubs and gathering areas, and just an overall hustle and bustle that made the city feel lived in and real. The music itself is okay. Don't get me wrong. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find myself bopping in my seat as my next game loaded up. For the life of me, I can't recall one song, one beat, one rhythm, like anything. Once it stopped, it was pretty much instantly forgotten. The single player as a whole is predictable. You complete challenges, fight bosses, gain new abilities, find areas, and eventually help save Squirt City. You don't really unlock weapons, as each level has a set number of loadouts that you can choose from, usually 3. That being said, you do unlock cosmetics and clothing items that I believe are exclusive to the single player. You start with a normal machine gun-esque spoot shooter that randomly covers anything in an even layer. We've all been there, fellas. You also get access to a sniper rifle, a minigun, a bow, an umbrella, a bucket, a mop, and I can feel myself losing you, because on paper these shouldn't work, but oh my god, they do. The weapon design in this game is bonkers, and I am an absolute fan of how creative these things ended up being. Also, it's worth noting that a lot of the weapons in Splatoon 3 were in the second game, so if you've played the other games, fingers crossed that your favorite made the cut. While we're talking about the guns, let's just talk about the aiming. There's definitely a strong level of aim assist. Your crosshair has a little circle that tends to attach to the enemy you're aiming at to give you a bit of a helping hand, which was a godsend in some of the boss fights where you're having to lock onto multiple targets in quick succession. It lacked a certain skill ceiling that I look for when I play shooting games. I want to start off bad and I want to feel myself get better. In Splatoon, it was really about your movement rather than the way you aimed, and that was really, really noticeable. Overall, I enjoyed the single player. It was repetitive at times, the story seemed a little nonsensical, and the variety of missions was pretty lackluster. But I have fun. The multiplayer, though, is where this game shines. Oh my god, is this fun? Let me paint the picture for you. Get it? The matches themselves are objective-based. I spent a fair amount of time playing Turf War, which is like a 4v4 arcade-style game mode, where the aim of the game is to cover a majority of the map in as much squirt as you possibly can. As far as I can tell, kills didn't really mean anything. It does remove a player off the map for up to 5 seconds, so it can be useful to wipe out the enemy team and then quickly cover their paint with yours. But it's fairly common for 1 or 2 of your teammates to not attempt to get any kills at all and to spend a majority of their time just trying to paint the map. A majority of my time, I was the worst person on the map. Probably owing to the fact that I don't have the reaction speed of a 12-year-old, I still had a blast. It didn't matter that I couldn't keep up, and if you aren't a Pro League Splatoon 3 player, you're still gonna have a good time. The variety of weapons, fast-paced fights, and strategy variation is enough to keep you playing time and time again. And honestly, after this review, I'll probably pick it up, because I spent my time cackling to myself as I snuck up behind enemy inklings with my splatter shot and just wiping them out. The ranking system is top-notch. You know when you're playing any other game and you decide to play ranked? Maybe you're playing Overwatch, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, etc, etc. So you're playing one of these games and you are on fire. Enemy team, they can't touch you. You're dropping kill streaks, maybe you're throwing your economy around, you're even selecting out of meta heroes. How dare you? And then, despite you absolutely dominating, because you were teamed up with a squad of cavemen, smacking their controllers against a rock and ooga-boogering their way through the game, you lose. Cue the sad music, grayscale the footage, raindrop_greenscreen.mp4 with ultra key please, because it is crying time for the homies.
Defeat.
Not in Splatoon 3 though. Splatoon doesn't rank you up just when you win. It also lets you use a performance-based medal system to determine your positive impact on the game. Do well enough, and even if you lose, you still push your MMR upwards, which ranks you up. This ranking system is something that I have been begging for in competitive games for years, pretty much since Overwatch came out, and I will give props where it is due to Splatoon 3, as no other game that I know of has this system. That doesn't mean that the multiplayer isn't without its faults though. You unlock new weapons, gear, items, and upgrades by simply playing the game and leveling up. There's a fairly decent variety of weapon types, and although visually they look different, at their core they function as the standard weapon archetypes that you've seen in all competitive shooters. This can feel really frustrating because as you level up, you gain the ability to unlock weapons, but you have to pay with unlock tokens to actually play with them. The big issue here is, especially when you start, you have next to no idea how a weapon will work in multiplayer, resulting in a hefty case of buyer's remorse. It's just a blind stab in the dark. Will the sniper rifle be effective? Take a swing and find out. Don't like it? Too bad. You're stuck with it until you get another unlock token. I'll also point out that at level 1, you have 3 weapons to choose from. Level 3, you have 6. 5, you have 9, so on and so forth. So even if you got an unlock token every time you leveled, you still wouldn't have enough tokens to try all the guns. What? Call of Duty had this mechanic down in 2008, Nintendo. How are you f***ing this up? Balance feels non-existent because the game has zero matchmaking. You'll find yourself going up against teams of high-level players right from the get-go. They have miniguns and rocket launchers while you're stuck with the trash tier weapons getting spawn camped from across the map. It can get seriously frustrating. As far as I can tell, there's only 2 maps in rotation at any given time, and they seem to change every couple of hours, which honestly baffles me. Why? Just add all the maps to the pool. It would give the games themselves a higher level of variety. The game just throws terms and things at you with zero explanation. I went and unlocked Splat Dualies because the shopkeeper told me that it gave me a dodge roll ability that would make me more mobile. He also claimed it would give me pinpoint accuracy at the sacrifice of movement after execution. He also didn't explain to me how to dodge roll. I'm not kidding. I played 10 games before getting so annoyed and Googling it. And I found out that you can only dodge roll whilst firing and then hitting the B button. That's dumb. I'm dropping my overall rating by an entire point for this game just because of this. I'm just kidding. Or am I? But here's some questions for you, Nintendo. Why can't I swap my weapon when one game ends and I've opted to play another? Why can't I back out if I accidentally select that I want to continue with the same team? Why is there no HUD in the lobby so I can see things like how much currency I have and how many weapon unlocks I have available? Why do you cancel matchmaking after exactly 68 seconds has passed? You scared of 69? And on top of that, why are games so short? Waiting 8 minutes to play 120 seconds of a game is just annoying. These might seem like little issues, but holy fuck did they stack up as I played. It's quality of life things like this that Nintendo just never seems to test or even think about. Nintendo just seems to be so inept at setting up online systems. Half the time I searched for an online game, I was kicked out due to an error. But funnily enough, that error only ever appeared at the 120-second mark of me searching for a game. It's almost like they didn't want you thinking matchmaking could possibly take longer and it must be your fault. Playing with friends in every other game seems easy, but in Splatoon 3, it was a nightmare. Between not being able to connect to each other, lobbies crashing our games during searching, and even at one point, and this isn't a joke, getting put on different teams even though we queued together. You suck, bro.
Oh, dude, I just got disconnected.
No way, dude.
This game, bro.
You're actually kidding. I was actually stomping kids, bro. It baffles the mind, and it was much easier to play solo than to play with friends, which is super disappointing. Side note here, don't even bother trying to find a game not in peak times. I spent an hour and a half trying to find a game after 9 PM, and I couldn't find anything. I don't know if this is because a majority of the Splatoon 3 player base is 6 years old and it was their bedtime, but I'd say that if you're keen to play multiplayer, and you should be, get in now before the servers are emptier than the seat that I reserve for my father at all my school plays. Splatoon 3's Oddest Edition is the new locker system. It's a super simple system that lets you express yourself creatively, and it works like this. As you play, you find, well, garbage. There's really no other way to explain it. I was finding barrels of oil, old broken toys, torn train tickets, and then I was using them to decorate my locker. Now, to be fair, there are cool items, and you can display things like your weapons, the clothes that you've unlocked, and secret items, but I honestly loved making my locker look like a serial killer's loadout. All in all, the multiplayer is where the meat and potatoes of the game lies. It's fantastic, and I highly recommend it. Splatoon 3 sold over 3.45 million copies in 3 days, and it's now labeled as the fastest selling Nintendo game in history. Was it worth it? Let's break it down. Without hitting my microphone. Gameplay gets a 7 out of 10. Honestly, it could have been an 8, maybe even a 9, but the UI issues, lack of options in multiplayer, and the frustrating quality of life issues really affected Splatoon 3's overall score. Usually, I could forgive these issues, but it's 2022, and they just shouldn't exist. I'm giving the story a 5 out of 10. It feels fairly disconnected. You arrive on a hub island, complete what feels like random objectives, fight a boss, watch a cutscene, and then move on to the next island. All in the name of saving a city from an enemy you've been fighting since the first game. It wasn't anything inspired or anything to write home about, but it wasn't awful either. Graphics get a 7 out of 10. There's been no drastic improvement since the second game. The art style is fun, and for the most part, my game was relatively stable with only a handful of noticeable frame drops. I enjoyed the hub city the most, and I loved wandering around, but it wasn't mind-blowingly impressive to me. There's no ray tracing or anything like that. Imagine on a Switch, ray tracing. Audio gets a 6 out of 10. Guns all sound relatively the same, the music's pretty forgettable, and the character voices started to really grate on me around the third cutscene. The environmental sounds, ambience, and general vibe audio really upped the score here though. The city felt real. I didn't notice a loop, and I was pleasantly surprised that the sounds in multiplayer were mostly satisfying. Although, I was missing a classic kill sound effect. Come on Nintendo, I need my Pavlovian response, please and thank you. Value gets a 3 out of 10. It's its weakest point. It doesn't live up to the $60 price tag. This game is not worth the same cost as a Super Mario Odyssey, Super Smash Bros, or Breath of the Wild. The repetitive story and buckets of quality of life issues, as well as inconsistent matchmaking times, makes me think that honestly, you won't be able to play this game for more than a month, so that value just isn't there. Overall, I'm giving Splatoon 3 a final score of 6 out of 10. By no means does this mean that the game is bad. 6, in my opinion, is a perfectly decent game. It's not a good game or a great game, but it's definitely above average. It does what it says on the box. I had fun, I laughed, and I enjoyed all the small aspects, and the overall experience was positive. Was it perfect? Definitely not, as there were some glaring issues that I'd love to see patched. It was by no means a bad game, and I'll definitely be picking it up for fun in the future if there's still lobbies of players ready to get their butts whooped, baby. So that's it. My first review for the channel is done. It's over, baby. Turn off the lights and go home. Or maybe wipe. I don't know what you're doing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please let me know what you thought of my first ever professional review. Your feedback would be so helpful to me, as I'd really love a chance to show you guys what I can do. Make sure you like the video and share it with your friends. If there are any games you'd like my personal take on in the future, please let me know in the comments down below. I read them all. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Maxi, and I don't have an outro yet. So, bye! Outro song for fellas, it's the outro song.